Hi everyone, it's Sue Plumb here to share a scrapbooking process video with you today. Now today's layout that I'm sharing is actually created using my March homemade kit that I put together. Now this kit was inspired by Khristina from Redefined Kreative and her For the Love of Homemade Kit series that she does here on YouTube. So each month Khristina publishes a list of kit ingredients and you simply shop your stash. Now, if you follow along my Facebook page or my blog, you'd know that I've been on a bit of a mission to do some stash busting lately. So seeing Christina's list for this homemade kit was exactly what I needed to go into my cupboard, shop my stash and create my own kit. Now, this is actually the third page that I've created with this kit. And the first two you can see on my blog or on my Instagram. So I've already gotten stuck into this kit and cut into a lot of the papers. I had a little bit of a flick through of the papers at the start of the video. And where I'm at now, you'll actually see that I am creating a bit of a mixed media background because some of the ingredients in this kit were mixed media ingredients. So the ones that I put in were some very old glimmer mists that I had in my stash, which I have long forgotten about. So I pulled those out of the cupboard and I actually pulled out a small pack of gelatos that for whatever reason had not been used. I think because usually I use the gelatos from the large pack of gelatos that I have. So I used some of the glimmer mist, tipped it into a cup, and I used a wide brush just to brush it on the page because I don't actually like using sprays as sprays. I generally tend to use them to add splatters to a page, to paint on the background and create a watercolor effect. So I started with my cardstock and I just brushed the glimmer mist onto the page using my favorite number 4 2-inch brush. I love the effect that using a wide brush gives and the fact that you can actually see the brush strokes on the page. So I dried that off, and in my homemade kit, I actually had an embellishment kit from a shop called Delish Scraps. Now, unfortunately, Delish Scraps is no more, but I did have this small kit that I found in my cupboard that had been unused. It was completely sealed and for whatever reason it had been buried underneath other things and never got used. And inside that kit was actually that little tiny floral stencil. So I thought that after I put the glimmer mist on my background that I would actually use that little stencil and use the gelatos just to add a little bit of stenciling over the top. So I used a dry method of application where I just scribbled the gelato onto my messy mat. And then I used a stencil brush to pick up the colour, and then I just brushed it through the stencil using a circular motion. So once I had the glimmer mist and the gelatos down on my page, that was it for my mixed media background at that point, and I turned my attention to the papers. Now, as I said, I had already cut into many of the papers for my previous 2 layouts. So a lot of the pieces that I was working with were already cut into pieces and already partly used. So I do like to use scraps and rip them and tear them and cut them and stick them into layers to add extra colour. And as these layouts were for stash busting, I was really trying to make these layouts very layered and use up as much of this paper as I could because I really don't want to get to the end of the month and have a whole heap of stuff left in this kit. The whole aim is to use these things up. So with the papers, one of the ingredients in the kit this month is specialty papers. Now I have quite a few specialty papers in my stash. Many of them being transparencies from Hambly Screen Prints. You may remember them. One of the other specialty papers I actually found was this circular die cut paper from My Little Shoebox, who sadly are also no longer around. And given that I don't like using circular things as an entire circle, I don't know why, I don't just like a circular thing stuck in the middle of the page. I decided to cut that die cut up and use it just as a backing piece. I cut it in half and then I cut the edge of it off so that it was just a more of an odd shape, and I used that as the basis for my layers. So I started with that little piece, and then I just gathered a whole heap of bits and pieces that I had left over the kit, stacked them all together, and stapled the stack together. Now, once I had my stack together and I sat it on top of my page, I had a look at it, and that background was just a little bit too clean and neat for me. And I wanted to make use of some of the other glimmer mists that I'd actually pulled out and put into my kit. So I pulled out the black cherry and a small stiff brush and just added some splatters on the background just to messy it up a bit, because if you know me, you know I don't like clean, neat and perfect. So added some splatters. I didn't actually use my heat gun to dry it because I'm way too impatient for that. You'll see that I just roll a roll of paper towel over the top just to pick up any excess, so I'm ready to keep going on my page. So once I had the splatters down, I felt much happier with that background. It was a little bit messier and more my style. And then I started playing with all the layers on my page. So I had my stack of layered papers, which I popped down onto the page. You can see how I ran that strip of the black paper through. That was to tie in with the fact that I had these quite strong black and white photos. It would have looked a little bit strange if I didn't draw some black in. It would have really made those photos look too stark sitting on the coloured papers. So after I had my stack of papers stuck down on the page, I also added, you can see, I added a paper doily, which also came from that Delish Scraps kit. I also like to add a little bit of texture to my layouts, and I often do this by adding some cotton or some frayed gauze, and in today's case it was some frayed gauze. The gauze that I use comes from our local pharmacy, and I just get a pack of them, shred it up, and that's how I use it. When you attach the gauze to the page, the easiest way to attach it is if you have a long-armed stapler, just pop a staple through and staple it onto your page, because the gauze doesn't tend to like a lot of adhesives. Once I had all of those layers in place, I began playing around with the embellishments. Again, I went to that Delish Scraps kit, and I found that super cute little bicycle wood veneer. Now, I didn't actually want the straight wood colour on my page because I thought that would have been a little bit too hard to try and tie in with all the other embellishments that I was putting onto the page. So I just softened the colour of the wood veneer using one of my Posca paint pens, a white paint pen. I wasn't too particular about this. I didn't really want to make it a stark white. I just wanted to take some of that wood colouring out of it. Some of the other things I found in the Delish Scraps kit, there was also a journal card that had a bicycle on it, and there was also a cute little bow, which I decided to put on the basket of the bicycle. Now, because that bicycle had that cute little basket, of course I needed to put some flowers or something in the basket, which I pulled from that Jen Hadfield die cut pack, the garden party pack. You can see I've also got the coordinating stickers there, and it was my goal this month to bust as much of those embellishments as I could, because I actually didn't have any of the matching papers to those. I'm not sure exactly why I purchased the stickers and the die cuts and none of the papers. It might have just been because of what was available at the time, or because I thought they were really cute. I have no idea. I can't remember. So you can see that I've put that die cut behind the wood veneer, so it appears that the flowers are sitting in the basket. I popped that cute little ribbon bow on the top. I also found a die cut that said "I live for the weekend," which I tucked into that large bicycle wheel because I didn't like the look of it sitting there empty. Now, you'll note that when I am fiddling around with all of these embellishments, that I don't actually start by attaching my photos to the page. Now, this is because I love going back and tucking things under my photos and around my photos. So attaching the photos onto the page is something that I do much later, so that I can continually lift them off out of the way if I need to stick something down. So I knew I was going to tuck that little journaling card sort of in between my photos like that. And I put an arrow paper clip on it because clips were one of the things that is also in this March kit recipe. So I found a bag of random paper clips that I had, and any opportunity that I had to use any of those suckers up this month was good with me. So I popped that large pink arrow paper clip on there and actually put a bit of sticky tape on the back of it to hold it in place because it was a little bit loose and I didn't want it coming off. Now, I had sort of figured out I didn't want anything else tucking in behind these photos, so I just used a good strong liquid adhesive to stick the photos down on the page. You'll note that I didn't use tape because tape is not friends with gauze. Not friends at all, and I have learnt that the hard way. Then I went back to that coordinating sticker sheet and just started tucking in as many embellishments as I could. I'm just tucking them in. As usual, I am creating my embellishment clusters in a 3. So going with the rule of thirds and creating that visual triangle around my photos, which helps to bring balance to your page. So you can see that I've got a cluster above the photos, a cluster to the right, and a cluster to the left. I'm all about balance here, people. It's got to be balanced. You'll see that when I put things on, I am quite particular about putting 3s of things, and I guess that's just one of my little quirks. So yeah, using up as many of those stickers as I could. You can see on the table there, I've also got some little wood veneer hearts that I found. Not even sure where these came from. Just thought that I could use those on the page and make them work. So you'll see me pop some of those on later. And I used the Posca pen again on those, just to, as I said, to tone down the wood colour, because I really didn't want the wood colour on there too much. I'm happy for a bit of it to show through, but I sort of wanted a whitewashed look to it. Now, what else am I using on that page? Oh, there's a flare button, which also came from that Delish Scraps kit. I used labels, and you can see I went back in with some more specialty paper, which was that heart transparency from Hambly Screen Prints, and went back and tucked that into my layers. So as I said, this was a bit of a layering extravaganza, this page. I really wanted lots of colour, lots of layers, and to bust as much of that kit as I could. I'm on a mission, people, and I really don't want much left in that box at the end of the month, because I have already decided that whatever is left in that box at the end of the month, be it scraps, stickers, chipboard, whatever, that I'm done with them. And they will all go to the kids' school so that the kids down there can use them for craft. What else did I add to that page? I added some stamping because one of the kit ingredients was roller stamps. So I actually pulled out 2 Dear Lizzie roller stamps that had been very, very underused. And I think that was simply because they got buried under the other mountain of my roller stamps. So I just used my Stays On ink and just stamped a few phrases on there. The black ink also helped to tie in with those black and white photos. And the final thing that I'm putting on the page there, you can see I pulled out one of my Martha Stewart punches to add a butterfly because I'm all about the butterflies. Punches were in the kit ingredients. There's the kit ingredients for you actually. You can have a look at the kit ingredients there. And you can also see the kit that I put together. There is a printable version of this list over on Christina's blog. So I will pop a link to it below so that you can go over and print it out if you want to play along too. That's it from me today. Thanks for stopping by. Until next time, stay scrappy.